Hey Mind Friends, this is Tom from FireYourBoss.xyz. What's the key ingredient, maybe the missing ingredient for most of you in solving and overcoming really tough problems? I share a lot of my life on Facebook very openly and forthcomingly, and I routinely get asked questions from people like, Tom, how are you able to do so much? You travel all over the place, you're doing what you want to do, spending your time how you want. You get to spend all this time with your adoptive family that you just met back in 2 years ago, and you don't have to report to a boss because you don't need a job anymore. How are you able to do all this stuff? And then I proceed to tell them how, because I think they should have the freedom to spend their time how they want to. And then I hear the sounds of the beat of the death drum raining through on their human spirit with their answer. Oh, Tom, I don't have time for that. That sounds hard. I don't know how to do that. But I'm just barely comfortable enough right now to where I won't die. Well, I've got something to fall back on. Wow, that's really nice, Tom. I'm glad you want that for me too, but I just don't think I have what it takes. I don't know. There's people in my family and friends that might not approve of me doing something like that because they like me to live inside of this small little box that they feel comfortable having me inside of. Man, that sounds really cool. When things slow down and I have more time, I would like to do it. Bullshit. Please allow me to sum up for you the umbrella over everything else. All it is becoming more faithful with the time that you've been given. You're going to need more explanation than that. That sounds really cliche that you just need to be faithful with the time. I get it. So give me a few minutes. First, let me tell you, if you were given more hours in the day, because that's what we hear a lot of, right? If only there were more hours in the day, I could get so much more done and I could get ahead and solve some problems and this and that. We all hear that stuff. Maybe we've said it. I've said it in the past. I don't say that anymore. My language changed from, if only I had more time in the day. I changed from that to, I'm going to become more faithful with the time that's already there, because that's the real way of solving a problem and getting ahead. If magic happened and suddenly you had 25 hours in the day instead of 24, then you will go further in the hole. If you practice what you've been practicing with the time you've already been given and it's gotten you in the hole or wherever it is that you're at now, then you're just going to go deeper in the hole. What happens when you give somebody with a spending problem, for example? Money is easy, we can count it. But what happens when you give somebody with a horrible spending problem more money? They believe, well, if I just had more money, I could pay off all this debt. They go deeper into debt every single time, whether they get money from magic or they get an inheritance, which is probably more likely going to happen because magic doesn't happen. But if they just come across it for whatever reason, they always go further in the hole. Don't believe me by chance? Okay, check this out. Are you making more money now from the day that you graduated high school or less money than when you graduated high school? For almost every single one of you, I'm making more money now, probably quite a bit more. All right, second question. Are you further in debt now than when you were in high school? The answer for most of you is yeah. Okay, so you've been given more money, you're further in debt. Same thing with time. If you're given more time with the way that you've been treating time, for most of you, you're just going to have more time problems. Even though I just totally proved to you that if you have more resources that you've not been faithful with yet, you're going to go further in the hole, most of you still aren't going to believe it anyways. But some of you will. Okay, so now that we've established that you do not need more, but you need to become more faithful with what you already have so that you have more, because that's how it works in the real world, we can move on. I challenge you to audit every minute of every day for a week. You're going to find that you've got all kinds of discretionary time that you did not even know about. Let's just take Facebook, for example, because if you're watching this, odds are you're on Facebook. You're online, certainly. What are you doing when you're on Facebook? You know what most people are doing when they're on Facebook? They're bitching and complaining about politics, about the elections that are coming up or past elections, celebrity gossip, and all this other stuff that does nothing to improve the quality of their life. All it does is it makes sure that their opinion is heard, which is very self-serving. It's kind of an ego trip in a way. Government sucks, man. I'm gonna hinge my success on what the government's doing. Because that way, if I'm not successful, I can protect my ego from hurting because it was the government's fault, not mine. J-Lo's butt is like Oh my god, can you believe what happened on TV last night on my favorite reality TV show? The Travel Channel is pretty cool. Sure beats going out there and living it for real. I get to see it on the TV. I'm at work. Oh my god, my boss is so stupid. I have to be stuck here at this cubicle with pictures of my family instead of the real thing. Well, if I were in charge of this country, it would be different. Any of those things look vaguely familiar either from maybe yourself or somebody else, or maybe draw your own parallels between those examples I just gave you in your own life. And whatever it is that you're doing, that you're spending your time doing, ask yourself, is it in alignment with any of your priorities? If your priorities are suffering, is how you're spending your time in any alignment with your priorities? Do you have segments of the day, even if it's just a few minutes, where you're on Facebook, for example, or doing anything for that matter, that your priorities are suffering and you're spending at least a few minutes a day on things that have nothing to do with your priorities? The cool, powerful thing about learning to become faithful with your time, even if it's just a few minutes a day that you have right now, is this. Once you're faithful with whatever you have right now, time, money, resources, what have you, then as you get more, because you will get more as you become faithful with it, but now that you know what to do, you can scale up instead of scaling down, right? So now you've got more time to be more faithful with, so you're going to continue to get more freedom of your time. You're going to have financial freedom, which you can't even address freedom of time unless you annihilate any negative energy you have towards money, just so you know. Because financial freedom gives you freedom of time. Without it, there's no freedom of your time. And if that doesn't turn you on, then you haven't painted yourself a vision of how you would spend that time if you were free. Who would you spend your time with? What would you be doing? What kind of impact and contribution would you create? With whom? What would that feel like? What would it be like? What would it smell like, taste like? How would it make you feel? How do you want to be remembered? Who's the person that you want to become? What's the example you want to set for your family? If you have kids, for your kids. All these kinds of things. What would you do with your time? Let's say you did fire your boss and you suddenly have 8, 10, some of you 16 hours a day now that there's no boss giving you orders to fill your time, or no time clock, nobody to ask permission from to take a vacation or whatever. No gatekeeper, you got to ask permission. Now you're a free human being. What are you going to do with that time? Most of you have no clue. You haven't thought about it. So it's easy to come up with excuses and all these other things and have this discretionary time while your priorities are suffering. It's very easy to be unfaithful with your time if you don't have a compelling vision and a strong answer as to what you would be doing with your freedom of time if you had more of it. Something that just pulls at your heart, something that it would break your heart to not do it, so you would absolutely have to do it. So build that up. And then you're going to have the fuel that lights your human spirit on fire, releasing the power of your human spirit. And when that's released, there's no stopping you. You'll even do things that flat suck because you've connected the dots to what it's going to mean for you. And suddenly things that used to suck don't suck anymore. Now you're excited to do them because you've connected the dots. Neat how that works, isn't it? But you don't have the skill or the time or the resources or the whatever. Okay, being faithful with your time. Remember, it's an umbrella concept. You don't have the skill, for example. You don't know how to do what I do. Learn one digestible piece at a time. Just because you don't know how to do something doesn't mean you don't learn how to do it. You're walking. How'd you do it? You learned. And you know what you did along the way? You fell on your ass countless times. You bumped into shit. You probably cried. Who knows? But you figured it out, and now you're walking. Isn't that awesome? Same thing when you learned how to drive. I bet the first time you turned a 90-degree corner, you oversteered or understeered. Who knows? You failed, but you learned from it, and you made corrections, and you learned how to drive. It's the same dealio. Fail your way to the top. Welcome making mistakes. It's part of the learning process. So you learn. That's being faithful with your time. You don't have money. You don't have the financial freedom. When you're faithful with your time, you can get the financial freedom. And once you're faithful with a little bit of time a day, you're going to get more time. And then you're already going to know what to do with the more time, because what you were doing on a smaller scale worked. Now you can do it on a bigger scale and reach your financial freedom goals even more quickly so that you can have your freedom of time. And it's the mass majority, the average main school of thought, when they hear financial freedom, they actually think it's about the money. It's not. The spiritual gangsters know that it's about the freedom of time and what that's going to mean for you because of how you're going to spend your time, how it's going to feel, how you're going to impact and contribute And, whatever that's going to look like for you. At this day, as deep as we are inside of the information age right now, we actually have platforms online that we can reach the entire world for free. Years ago, that would have costed tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now it's free. Oh my God. Do you think you were just born at this day and age to experience all of these things just by random luck? I kind of believe that there's some greater power somewhere. The great designer, whoever, there's something at work bigger than us that made you experience life at this time on purpose. This is no time to play small. Couple the fact that we're so deep in the information age with the fact that there's a multitude of dire problems in the world that's killing the planet. I could name them off for days. We need more people to step up and play bigger and not be self-absorbed. You got a dream to achieve that's going to benefit other people on the planet, then it's pretty self-absorbed to not do whatever it takes to become more faithful with the time you've already been given. You don't need more time, just be more faithful with what you've been given. You'll be given more. You want to help like you say you do? You want to help the planet survive? The planet's going to survive, just so you know. In the process, it might kill us to save herself. So basically, we're saving ourselves and the planet at the same time. But you want to contribute with that? Be more faithful with your time. Do whatever it takes. There's already too many people playing small. Don't be one of them. If you have been, then draw a line in the sand. I used to play small. I drew a line in the sand. I didn't have any skills whatsoever. I certainly couldn't make videos. I drew a line in the sand, and I learned and got a little bit better every day. I made mistakes that I learned from, so in the end, they really weren't mistakes after all, if you look at it that way. You need to get some emotional maturity, some spiritual equipping. Well, become more faithful with your time, and you will. Maybe you're not self-motivated and you actually need someone to call you at like 6 a.m. every morning to kick you in the butt and make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. In that case, you need to spiritually and emotionally grow up and build a bigger vision so that you motivate from the inside every day. Especially on the days that stuff is just crashing down around you. You get a really tough phone call. Who knows? Something's going to happen, right? Especially on those days, man, if you can be involved in what you're supposed to be doing for your vision and for your dreams, including on the days that are really tough, man, that's a great place to be. Most people won't do it. Tough phone call comes in. I would, but I just gotta wait because something came up. Skip that. That is the epitome of letting your circumstances push you around like a rag doll. It's certainly not being faithful with your time. You know you're going to get more problems if you're not faithful with your time. And if you are faithful with your time, then in the future as emergencies come up, because that happens, there's going to be things that come up that you're either going to be free to do something more constructive about, or you're not. So if you're faithful with your time, you're going to have more options as time goes forward. For example, I found my birth family. I'm adopted. I've longed to meet them my entire life. Now that I've found them, they're long distance. I can fly back and forth as often as I want, get to know them. I lucked out. We don't get to choose our parents. I got 4 amazing ones, and I'm loving getting to know them, and I love not having to ask permission from a gatekeeper to go see them, and I love not having to make sure I've got enough money because that's taken care of now, financial freedom, right? Which gives me freedom of my time, in this instance, to get to know my birth family. I found out I've got 2 sisters I never knew about. All kinds of things, aunts, uncles, even a living grandparent. I haven't had a living grandparent in quite a few years. You have no idea what's going to happen in your future. You just don't. There's going to be stuff that happens and you're either going to be free or you're not. So be faithful with your time. You're going to have more options, more freedom. Your spirit is going to be more alive. So unleash that power of your human spirit, and you're going to do what it takes, including the days that you just don't want to, or the days that life got really tough. You're going to do what it takes to give yourself that financial freedom so you can have your freedom of time. If you got value from this, go to my website, fireyourboss.xyz, not .com, .xyz. See my reflection in the mirror? Distraction. Okay, fireyourboss.xyz. Pull stuff out. Thousands of pieces of free content that you can get all kinds of help from, whatever turns you on as you're looking at titles and so forth. There's even a search bar in there. You can type in keywords and whatever's on your mind. If I can help, I'll help. And I've also got a 30 Days to Profit training sequence. So you may or may not be interested in that, but if you'd like to take a look at it to see if it's something that you would be interested in doing, that's where I teach basically how I made my first 6 figures, and a lot more since then on social media, primarily Facebook. And my starting place was 0 income. I had no job, no unemployment benefits. I had no kids or anything I could claim. So I came from a pretty tough spot, and almost homeless too. And I overcame all of that stuff, and now I'm free. I don't need a boss or a job, don't want one, I'll never have one, why would I? And I get to live my traveling dreams, and I get to do all these really cool things. So if you want to know more about that, let me know. I'll shoot you over a video I made where I talk about my profit training sequence, and if you want to do it, we'll do it. And if you don't, then at least you're on the road looking for something that is for you, and that's a good thing too. Bye for now.